"Sir, that seat's been reassigned." The words cut through the hum of Gate B9 like a crack in glass. Every head didn't turn, but every ear caught it. Marcus Hale, mid-40s, calm, dressed in black jeans and a plain sweatshirt, stood still in the aisle of Horizon Flight 227, holding a valid first-class ticket that suddenly meant nothing. Across from him, a blonde attendant named Nicole smiled with the kind of politeness that wasn't meant to comfort, only to contain. Behind her, a white businessman in a navy suit tapped his boarding pass against his palm impatiently, the kind of tap that said he expected the world to move for him. Nicole's tone softened but didn't bend. "You'll need to move to the back, sir. This section is reserved." Her eyes flicked toward the suited man and then back to Marcus. Everyone knew what that meant. Marcus didn't raise his voice. He just looked at her, steady, like someone taking a mental note that would cost someone their job later. The cabin stilled, and in that silence sat an old, familiar echo, the quiet assumption that power looked a certain way, and it wasn't him. Before we continue, where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. And if you believe in dignity and justice, hit like and subscribe. These stories spark change, and we're glad you're here. Now, back to Marcus. Nicole's posture shifted. She placed one manicured hand on the headrest as if marking territory. "Security will escort you if you don't comply." The businessman smirked. A flight attendant near the galley whispered, "We've seen this before." Marcus heard her but didn't move. He had boarded quietly, deliberately, without the tailored suit or the private jet he usually used, because today wasn't about travel. It was a test. A test of what $120 million in airline contracts really meant when the face behind them was black and unrecognized. His ID had scanned green, his ticket had beeped clean, yet still, here he was erased in real time. The hum of the cabin turned into judgment. Eyes darted, some pitying, some entertained. Marcus's jaw flexed once. He thought of his father, a veteran who'd taught him to measure a man not by the noise he makes but by the silence he endures. Nicole leaned closer, lowering her voice like a threat wrapped in courtesy. "Sir, please don't make this difficult." Marcus's reply was soft, deliberate. "You already did." The man in the navy suit scoffed, sliding into the seat meant for him, and raised his champagne. "No hard feelings, brother," he said. The word brother landed like spit. Marcus exhaled through his nose, looked down at his boarding stub seat, 2 amperes, paid in full, his initials printed clear, and then up at the Horizon logo stitched on the uniform that was about to become a liability. Somewhere, his assistant Rachel was already watching the live security feed. And somewhere deeper, the system that had profited from his name was about to remember it. But for now, Marcus simply stepped back, calm as a tide before it turns, and said, "Proceed then," because the real turbulence wasn't in the air. It was in the power they were about to lose. The flight attendants exchanged glances that said everything without a single word. Nicole's smirk did not fade as Marcus stood motionless near the aisle. The businessman reclined in his seat as though he had conquered something more than a chair. Behind them, passengers whispered under their breath, the kind of hushed conversation that carries judgment wrapped in curiosity. A younger flight attendant, Mia, hovered near the galley, uncertainty flickering across her face. She had seen the boarding scan light up green for Marcus. She had watched him follow every rule. Still, her senior's voice had turned procedure into prejudice. Nicole adjusted her collar and turned sharply toward the cockpit, speaking into the intercom. "Captain, we have a situation in first class. Possible ticket fraud." Her tone was crisp, professional, but the accusation was personal. Marcus heard every syllable and felt the familiar sting beneath it. Not again, he thought. Not after everything he had built. He remembered being 24, flying standby to close his first business deal, and watching a gate agent tear up his confirmation slip because it was too wrinkled to be real. That memory never left him. It just got buried under layers of success and silence. The captain emerged from the cockpit, tall, middle-aged, his badge shining beneath fluorescent light. "Sir," he began, voice stiff with authority, "I am told there is an issue with your seating assignment." Marcus handed over his boarding stub. "Seat 2A, he said calmly. "Paid in full." The captain barely looked at it before glancing toward Nicole, who nodded as if to confirm her own story. "Our manifest shows a discrepancy," he continued. "Please move to the rear cabin while we verify your credentials." The businessman in the seat chuckled quietly. "Protocol is protocol," he muttered. Marcus turned his gaze toward him, not angry, just sharp enough to silence the arrogance. Then he looked back at the captain. "Verify quickly," he said. "Time is money, Captain, and both are mine today." The words hung in the air like static. Mia stepped forward timidly. "Captain," she said. "His ticket scanned correctly. I saw it." Nicole shot her a glare that could freeze fire. "Not now, trainee." But it was too late. Passengers nearby had heard. A woman in row 3 whispered. She saw it. It was green. Marcus caught the sound of support forming quietly, like a small wave in a still sea. He knew that wave could become a storm if guided right. "Captain," Marcus said again, softer but firmer. "You are making an assumption based on something that has nothing to do with your system." The captain hesitated, then gestured toward the jet bridge. "Sir, step off the aircraft while we sort this out." That was the moment Marcus understood this was not about a ticket. This was about appearance, about comfort zones, about what people like Nicole were taught to protect. He took a single step back, not to surrender, but to calculate. Behind his calm eyes, the next move was already in motion. His assistant Rachel had just received the alert. Horizon's board would be watching within minutes. "You are making a mistake," Marcus said evenly. Nicole crossed her arms. "Then it is yours to prove." Marcus smiled faintly. "No," he replied. "It will be yours to explain." The hum of the engines deepened. The air thickened with unease. And for the first time, Nicole's posture wavered just slightly. She did not know it yet, but the man she had just escorted toward humiliation was the very reason her airline could afford the fuel in those wings. Marcus stood just beyond the first-class curtain, the thin fabric between luxury and accusation fluttering slightly with the hum of the air vents. Nicole's voice carried through it, low but sharp. "He is bluffing. They always do." The businessman chuckled again, adjusting his tie like he had just watched a game he had already won. The captain turned away, pretending to check the manifest, his discomfort visible in the stiffness of his shoulders. Every eye that dared to look in Marcus's direction quickly turned away when he met their gaze. He did not look angry. He looked certain. Rachel's voice came softly through his earpiece, almost imperceptible. "Marcus, I am seeing the alert. Are you all right?" He murmured quietly. "Stay on standby. We are about to expose something bigger than customer service." Nicole stepped closer, her heels clicking against the floor with impatient rhythm. "Sir, if you do not exit the plane, we will have to call security." Marcus's response was calm but cold. "Go ahead." She hesitated for a moment, as if the quiet confidence in his tone unsettled her more than defiance would have. Mia, still near the galley, spoke up again. "He has done nothing wrong," Nicole snapped. "Enough." But Mia did not retreat this time. "You cannot treat people like this," she said, louder now, her voice trembling but clear. A ripple of murmurs spread through the cabin. A middle-aged woman in a red scarf muttered, "This is not right." A man in row 4 began recording discreetly with his phone. Marcus noticed but did not stop him. Evidence would not hurt the truth. The captain returned, avoiding Marcus's eyes. "Sir, we are going to have to deboard you now." Marcus's voice dropped lower, each word deliberate. "Before you do that, Captain, you might want to check your corporate directory. The last name Hale should look familiar." The captain froze, confusion flickering briefly before irritation took its place. "Are you threatening me?" Marcus's lips curved slightly. "No, I am reminding you that hierarchy can be deceiving." Nicole frowned, crossing her arms tighter. "I have been working here 12 years. I know the system inside out." Marcus nodded slowly. "Then you also know how quickly systems can change." The businessman snorted from his stolen seat. "You people love drama." The phrase hit the air like static. Mia turned sharply. "You people? What does that mean?" Nicole's face drained of color, realizing the shift. Marcus did not need to speak. The passengers were beginning to draw the lines themselves. Rachel's voice came again through his earpiece, crisp and professional. "Marcus, the compliance feed is active. Protocol 6 is ready when you say the word." He exhaled quietly, his hand brushing the side of his pocket. "Understood. Keep the line open." Nicole gestured toward the door. "Sir, this is your last warning." Marcus looked straight at her, unwavering. "You have no idea how true that is." Behind him, Mia's small act of defiance had already turned the tide. Passengers who had been silent now stared openly. Someone whispered, "Is he the owner?" Another voice, younger, answered, "Not sure, but they are about to find out." The tension in the cabin thickened, not from turbulence, but from awareness. Marcus stepped forward again, not toward the exit, but toward the truth. The airline might have taken his seat, but in the next few minutes, He was going to take their facade apart, piece by piece. The cabin was no longer calm. It was a silent storm disguised in polished seats and controlled smiles. The captain turned toward the cockpit again, pretending to be busy, but everyone knew he was retreating. Nicole, still holding her tablet, whispered to the businessman, "Do not worry, we will handle this." Her words were coated with certainty that no longer felt steady. Marcus remained still, hands clasped loosely in front of him. Every gesture was measured, every breath deliberate. He had endured worse than this, boardrooms filled with executives who smiled while doubting his capability, investors who mistook his silence for ignorance, and reporters who called his success a stroke of luck. The difference was that this time, it was public. This time, the world was watching. Mia stepped closer, standing half behind Marcus, half beside him, her fear visible but her conviction louder. "Captain," she said again. "His name is in the system. Seat 2A. I checked it myself." Nicole spun around, her tone sharp enough to cut. "You are out of line." Mia met her eyes for the first time. "And you are out of excuses." That sentence broke something in the air. A passenger near the window gasped quietly. Another whispered, "She is right." The businessman scoffed, shaking his head. "Unbelievable. People need to learn their place." Marcus turned his head toward him slowly. "You are absolutely right," he said evenly. "And today, you are about to learn yours." Rachel's voice returned through the earpiece, calm and surgical. "Marcus, confirmation complete. The board has eyes on the feed. They are documenting every word and visual frame. Do you wish to proceed?" Marcus's lips barely moved. "Proceed." Nicole crossed her arms tighter, unaware that the quiet hum of power she had once owned was already slipping from her hands. She gestured toward the security call button near the bulkhead phone. "You are leaving this aircraft now." The words came out stronger than she felt. Marcus tilted his head slightly, watching her. "That is an interesting choice," he said softly, "because what happens next will decide whether you ever board another one." The businessman snorted. "You think you are somebody?" Marcus finally turned fully toward him, eyes steady, voice calm. "No, I know I am. The question is, do you?" The tension in the aisle reached a breaking point. The captain reappeared, phone pressed to his ear, whispering rapidly into it. He looked pale now. "Sir," he said cautiously, "we are receiving some conflicting information from corporate." Nicole frowned. "What do you mean?" The captain's gaze flicked nervously toward Marcus. "They are asking for clarification on the incident in first class." "Corporate?" Nicole repeated, her confidence cracking. "Already?" Marcus's voice was almost kind when he answered. "Yes, Nicole. Already." He took a slow step forward, not threatening, just certain. "Because when you called this a situation, I called it a report." Mia's eyes widened as she realized what was happening. Rachel's voice came again. "Marcus, Phase 2 activated. Horizon compliance is online. Every statement is recorded." Marcus smiled faintly. "Thank you, Rachel." The businessman's smirk disappeared. The captain stood frozen. Nicole's breath quickened, and through the cabin's heavy silence, Marcus Hale, the man they had mistaken for a fraud, simply adjusted his sleeve and said, "Now, let us talk about the real discrepancy, how a $5 million client got treated like a stowaway on his own airline." The words landed heavier than turbulence, and the balance of power shifted completely in that one breath. For a moment, no one breathed. The captain's hand hovered near the intercom, unsure whether to speak or to stay silent. Nicole's face was pale now, her confidence stripped away by the calm authority in Marcus's tone. The businessman shifted uncomfortably in the stolen seat, the earlier arrogance replaced with something that looked a lot like fear. The air inside the cabin had changed. It no longer belonged to Horizon Airlines. It belonged to him. Rachel's voice came softly through his earpiece again, steady and clear. "Marcus, the compliance team is watching. Legal is on standby. The system is running full capture." He nodded subtly, his voice low but firm. "Good. Let them hear everything." Nicole swallowed hard, her eyes darting toward the passengers who were now openly filming. "Sir," she said, her tone trembling, "you are disrupting a flight operation." Marcus turned to her, his calm unwavering. "No, Miss Harris. You disrupted a man's dignity. I am simply restoring it." The captain cleared his throat, his voice thin. "Mr. Hale, we did not realize," Marcus interrupted gently, but with weight, "that I was a paying customer, that I was human." Or that I am the same Marcus Hale whose company owns the largest maintenance contract your airline has ever signed. The words landed like thunder under velvet. Nicole blinked, disbelief flooding her face. That is not possible, she whispered. Marcus smiled faintly. Check your quarterly reports. You will see my signature. A murmur spread through the cabin, disbelief mixing with awe. The businessman's lips parted, his voice small now. You own part of this airline? Marcus corrected him calmly. I own the trust that keeps it flying. Rachel's voice came again. Marcus, corporate has verified your identification. They are escalating to the board. Do you wish to continue with Phase 3? Marcus glanced toward Nicole, whose trembling hands were still gripping her tablet. Proceed, he said softly. And Rachel, record every apology that will come after this, the captain stammered. Mr. Hale, I assure you, this was a misunderstanding. Marcus's voice was sharp now, the warmth replaced with precision. No, Captain. A misunderstanding is forgetting a drink order. This was a decision. You chose who looked like they belonged. And you were wrong. Mia, standing a few feet away, looked down at the floor, tears in her eyes not from fear, but from relief. She whispered, I knew it. Marcus looked toward her, his expression softening. And you spoke up. That matters. Nicole tried to speak again, but her voice cracked under the weight of humiliation. I did not know. Marcus stepped closer, his gaze unflinching. That I was your company's biggest client? You did not have to. You only had to treat me with respect. The businessman in the seat stood abruptly, his earlier entitlement evaporating. Sir, please, take your seat. Marcus did not move. No, he said, his tone controlled. We are not done yet. He turned toward the captain. Call your operations manager. Tell them Marcus Hale is on board and wants a word. The captain hesitated. Sir, that is highly irregular. Marcus raised an eyebrow. So was this. The captain did not argue again. He stepped back into the cockpit, fumbling for the internal line. Nicole stood frozen, her authority collapsing one breath at a time. The cabin was silent except for the soft chime of an incoming message in Marcus's earpiece. Rachel's voice returned, this time sharper. Marcus, confirmation from the board. You have full discretion. The budget hold has been approved. Marcus exhaled slowly, his composure absolute. Then it begins, he said quietly. Freeze Horizon's $120 million contract until further notice. The words were quiet, but they carried the force of judgment. Nicole closed her eyes, realizing the cost of her mistake, while the passengers around them watched in stunned silence, witnesses to a moment when dignity, for once, demanded its full price. The captain's voice trembled as he spoke into the intercom, his words fractured by guilt. Ladies and gentlemen, please remain seated while we resolve a minor operational issue. But nothing about this was minor. Every passenger knew they were witnessing something far larger than a seating dispute. Nicole's shoulders stiffened as her tablet vibrated. The screen flashed red with a system notification she had never seen before. Access restricted, corporate override active. She blinked, confusion overtaking arrogance. What is happening? She whispered under her breath. Marcus did not need to look at her to know the system had already recognized the command. Rachel's voice came through the earpiece, calm as ever. Marcus, the contract freeze has been executed. Financial Control has notified Horizon's board. The compliance director is requesting a live statement for the record. He nodded slightly, his tone even. They will have one. He turned toward the captain, who stood frozen near the cockpit door, uncertainty painted across his face. Captain, Marcus said, you may want to inform your superiors that I have suspended all operations tied to our maintenance division. Effective immediately. The captain's jaw slackened. Suspended? Sir, that contract funds. Marcus cut him off softly. Funds accountability, Captain. And it appears that has been missing from your cabin today. The words were measured, almost surgical, but they carried the precision of a blade. Mia stepped forward, her voice trembling but resolute. Mr. Hale, I am sorry for what happened. I tried to speak up sooner. Marcus's expression softened. You did what mattered most, Miss Lang. You told the truth. Nicole exhaled shakily, gripping the back of a seat for balance. Mr. Hale, please, she began. I did not mean to disrespect you. I was following policy. Marcus looked at her, his tone calm but firm. Policy does not excuse prejudice. You enforced comfort, not compliance. You protected the image of service, not the spirit of it. Her eyes filled with tears she did not expect. I did not know who you were. Marcus took a slow step closer. That is the point. You should not have to. Around them, passengers remained still, their expressions ranging from guilt to admiration. The businessman who had taken Marcus's seat now stood awkwardly near the aisle, his earlier arrogance dissolved into silence. The captain cleared his throat again, attempting to salvage control. Mr. Hale, corporate has requested direct communication. They want to confirm the action you just authorized. Marcus nodded once. Put them on speaker. The captain hesitated but obeyed. Within seconds, the cabin filled with the hollow hum of a corporate line connecting. Then a composed female voice spoke through the loudspeaker. Mr. Hale, this is Denise Walker, Chief Operating Officer. We are receiving notice that you have frozen Horizon's operational budget. Is that correct? Marcus looked directly into the nearest cabin camera. It is, effective immediately, until Horizon Airlines publicly addresses the systemic bias that allows employees to treat paying customers as intruders. Every cent tied to my company's maintenance and leasing contracts will remain locked. The passengers gasped. The businessman whispered. He really did it. Marcus continued, his tone unwavering. I am not doing this to embarrass you, Miss Walker. I am doing it to remind you that respect is not a luxury seat. It is the minimum altitude. The line went quiet for a moment. Then the voice replied, tight but respectful. Understood, Mr. Hale. We will review immediately. He ended the call with a single touch on his wristband interface. The captain looked stunned. Nicole stood motionless, realizing she had just watched her career evaporate midair. Marcus turned to Mia. You will file the incident report, Miss Lang. Make sure your name is first on it. She nodded, tears slipping down her face. He looked back toward the passengers, his voice softer now but carrying through every row. What happened here was not about a seat. It was about sight. Who we choose to see, and who we pretend not to. Silence followed. It was the kind of silence that changes people. Marcus took his rightful seat in 2A. He did not smile. He simply exhaled, eyes forward, as the engines roared back to life. The engines hummed again, but the energy inside the cabin was different now. The hum no longer masked quiet prejudice. It resonated with accountability. Marcus sat in his rightful seat, 2A, not as a symbol but as a statement. The flight attendants avoided eye contact, their postures stiff with the weight of realization. Nicole stood near the galley, pale and trembling, her mind racing through every word she had said. The captain remained in the cockpit, speaking in short, nervous bursts into his headset, the language of damage control. Passengers whispered, their curiosity mixed with guilt and awe. One older woman across the aisle leaned forward slightly and said softly, You handled that with more grace than they deserved. Marcus gave her a polite nod but did not answer. Grace was not the goal, truth was. Rachel's voice came through the earpiece once more, professional yet warmer now. Marcus, the incident feed is already trending on social media. Several passengers' videos have surfaced. Public sentiment is overwhelmingly in your favor. Marcus sighed quietly. That is not why I did it. Rachel paused before replying. I know, but the message is spreading. He glanced around the cabin, his tone calm but deliberate. Let it. Maybe next time someone sees a man who looks like me, they will think before they judge. Mia approached carefully, holding a glass of water. Mr. Hale, would you like something to drink? He looked up at her, a trace of a smile breaking through the steel in his eyes. Thank you, Mia. And please, stop calling me sir. Just Marcus. She nodded, placing the glass on the armrest. You saved my job, she whispered. He shook his head. You saved your integrity. Nicole's voice broke the fragile peace. Mr. Hale, she said quietly. I understand if you want me terminated, but I need to say this, I thought I was protecting the airline. I did not realize how much damage my assumptions could cause. Marcus turned his head slightly, studying her expression. You are not the first person to confuse authority with awareness, he said. But today, you learned that uniform and empathy are not the same thing. Nicole's eyes filled with tears, but she did not speak again. The businessman who had once mocked him leaned toward the aisle. Mr. Hale, he said awkwardly. For what it is worth, I am sorry. Marcus looked at him for a long moment. Then start proving it when there is no audience. The man nodded, his face red with shame. The intercom crackled softly. The captain's voice returned, thin and subdued. Ladies and gentlemen, this flight will continue as scheduled. We thank you for your patience. His tone carried none of the pride it once had. Marcus leaned back, finally allowing himself to exhale. For the first time since boarding, he closed his eyes. He could hear the faint hum of passengers typing on their phones, the low murmur of conversations replaying what had just happened. Change, he thought, always begins with discomfort. Rachel's voice came again. Marcus, legal confirmed the suspension is effective. You will be contacted by the press once we land. He opened his eyes slowly. Tell them I do not want headlines, he said. Tell them I want reform. Mia stood near the galley, her shoulders squared now, standing taller than before. She looked at Nicole, then at Marcus, and said softly, You turned a flight into a lesson. Marcus looked at her and replied, No, Mia. We turned silence into consequence. The plane leveled out in the sky, steady and quiet. But every person aboard knew the world below would not stay quiet for long. The rest of the flight unfolded under a silence so heavy that even the engines seemed to hum softer. No one spoke loudly. No one laughed. No one ordered champagne. The passengers who had once looked away from Marcus now stole glances filled with quiet admiration and shame. Somewhere between Denver and Chicago, altitude turned into awareness. Nicole sat in the jump seat, staring down at her trembling hands. Every word she had said echoed back in her mind, like a verdict she could not appeal. She was replaying the moment she told Marcus to move to the back, the moment she decided her assumptions were policy. She wondered if anyone in management had ever told her what bias looked like. She realized she had never asked. In seat 2A, Marcus scrolled through the messages flashing across his phone screen. Rachel had forwarded a live feed, news outlets already covering the first-class incident. Clips of the flight were trending. A journalist's headline read, Black CEO removed from his own airline's partner flight freezes $120 million contract in real time. Marcus rubbed his temple. This was not the attention he wanted, but he knew silence would only protect the wrong people. Rachel's voice came softly through his earpiece again. Marcus, you have requests for interviews from CNN, Bloomberg, and The Times. Do you want to respond? He exhaled slowly. Not yet. Let the footage speak first. I want them to talk about behavior before they talk about business. Mia walked past quietly, handing blankets to nearby passengers. Her professionalism had turned into quiet defiance. She was no longer just following instructions. She was witnessing history. She caught Marcus's eye for a brief second and nodded with unspoken gratitude. Nicole saw it and looked away. The captain emerged once more from the cockpit, his face pale. Mr. Hale, he said carefully, corporate wants me to assure you that this situation does not represent Horizon Airlines' values. Marcus turned his head slightly. Then perhaps it is time your values become visible, Captain. The older man nodded, unable to respond. He returned to the cockpit, closing the door gently behind him, as though he wanted to shut out his own complicity. Outside the window, the clouds shifted, golden and white against the fading sky. Marcus stared at them, his reflection faint in the glass. He remembered the first time he flew barely 20, broke, sitting in coach on a ticket he could barely afford. A flight attendant then had told him he was in the wrong line. That sting had built something in him, not bitterness, but resolve. Now, decades later, sitting in first class under entirely different circumstances, the irony was complete. His thoughts were interrupted when his phone buzzed again. Rachel's voice turned urgent. Marcus, Horizon's board has issued an emergency statement. They are grounding their corporate PR flights until a full internal audit is conducted. They are calling it the Hale Protocol. He smiled faintly, the corners of his eyes tightening. The Hale Protocol, he repeated quietly. Let us hope it stands for something more than damage control. Mia stopped beside him, holding a clipboard. They are asking if you want to file an official complaint when we land. Marcus looked at her with steady calm. No, Mia. I want to file a correction. One that rewrites how people are treated before anyone else has to stand up like this. She nodded, her voice low. You already started that correction. The businessman who had mocked him earlier cleared his throat. Mr. Hale, he said hesitantly, if you ever need an ally, I mean, to help push this forward. Marcus regarded him for a long moment, then said, help someone who cannot afford my seat. That'll be enough. The man nodded silently, eyes lowered. The rest of the flight passed like an unwritten confession, heavy with the sound of realization. As the plane began its descent, Marcus whispered under his breath, sometimes the flight path to equality begins at 30,000 feet. No one else heard him, but the truth of it filled the air like oxygen. When the plane touched down, the wheels screeched against the runway with a sound that felt like release. The tension that had filled the cabin for hours was still there, but now it carried a different kind of weight. It was no longer about humiliation but reckoning. As the seatbelt sign went dark, passengers hesitated to stand. No one wanted to move before Marcus did. Nicole remained seated near the galley, her eyes red, her hands folded in her lap as if she were bracing for judgment. The captain's voice came through the intercom, low and subdued. "Ladies and gentlemen, we have arrived safely at Chicago O'Hare International Airport. Please remain seated until the aircraft has reached the gate." He did not thank them for flying with Horizon. Even he knew that courtesy would ring hollow now. Marcus waited, letting the others absorb the moment. He glanced down at his phone. The messages were relentless. Rachel had sent updates every few minutes, public outcry, trending hashtags, investors demanding statements. One line stood out. Horizon stock dropped 6% since announcement. Board meeting in progress. He exhaled slowly, not in triumph, but in acceptance. Change always came at a cost. Mia approached him quietly. "Mr. Hale," she said, her voice steady but soft. "Corporate asked me to escort you off the plane first." He shook his head gently. "No, Mia. I board and disembark like everyone else." She hesitated. "They said it is protocol." Marcus looked her in the eyes. "So was discrimination. Let us end one protocol at a time." The passengers watched as he stood, adjusting his jacket, his movements slow and deliberate. Nicole rose too, though unsteadily. "Mr. Hale," she began, her voice barely audible. "I do not expect forgiveness, but I need to say I am sorry." Marcus paused, then said quietly, "Apology accepted. Accountability remains." Her lips parted, trembling. "Will I lose my job?" He met her eyes. "That depends on whether Horizon wants reform or repetition." Then he turned away, his calm so complete it commanded silence. As he stepped into the aisle, passengers began to clap, hesitant at first, then growing stronger, the sound spreading like redemption. The businessman who had mocked him earlier joined in, his applause louder than anyone's. Marcus raised a hand slightly, motioning for quiet. "Keep your applause," he said. "Use your awareness instead." The words struck harder than any speech could. Mia followed him to the exit, standing straighter than she had all day. At the door, two Horizon executives in dark suits waited, faces tight with nerves. "Mr. Hale," one said quickly, "we are so sorry. Corporate will be issuing a full public apology. The board has requested a meeting with you immediately." Marcus nodded once. "They can meet me in my office tomorrow. For now, I have a statement to prepare." The man blinked. "A statement?" Marcus stepped onto the jet bridge, his shoes clicking against the metal floor. "Not to defend myself," he said. "To define what happens next." Cameras flashed near the terminal entrance as word spread. Travelers who had followed the story online held up phones, whispering his name. He ignored them all, walking with quiet purpose toward the black car waiting at the curb. The driver opened the door, but Marcus paused before getting in. He looked back at the plane through the glass window, its Horizon logo gleaming under the fluorescent lights. It took 30,000 feet for them to see what was beneath their own wings, he murmured. Then he got inside and closed the door. Rachel's voice came through the car's speaker as the engine started. "Marcus, the press is waiting. Do you want to speak tonight?" He stared out at the runway lights fading into the distance. "No," he said softly. "Let them talk first. I will speak when the noise becomes reflection." The car pulled away from the terminal, and behind him, the plane that once symbolized exclusion now stood as evidence of change in motion. The drive from the airport to downtown Chicago was quiet, except for the low hum of the car's engine and the faint buzz of Rachel's updates through the speaker. City lights flickered across Marcus's face as he stared out the window, watching raindrops race down the glass. "Marcus," Rachel said carefully, "Horizon's official apology just went live. The CEO released a statement calling your experience unacceptable and deeply regrettable. They also announced mandatory bias retraining across all divisions." Marcus's voice was calm but edged with exhaustion. "Good. But an apology without change is just marketing," Rachel continued. "Public reaction is massive. Hashtags with your name are trending. Some are calling for your leadership to oversee the reform task force." Marcus leaned his head against the seat, eyes half closed. "Reform is not a headline. It is a habit. Let them understand that before they invite me to lead anything." The car turned onto Michigan Avenue, the skyline glowing with cold silver light. Marcus's phone buzzed again, another alert. The board of Horizon had called an emergency shareholder meeting for the next morning. He knew what that meant. Preservation. Companies only moved that fast when they were trying to protect themselves, not the people they hurt. "Rachel," he said, Set a call with Denise Walker at 8 a.m. I want her to understand that this is not about optics. It is about culture. Already scheduled, she replied. He smiled faintly. That is why I keep you around. Her soft laugh filled the car. Momentary relief in a day built on tension. As they pulled into the private garage beneath his corporate tower, Marcus's reflection caught his eye in the tinted window. He saw not power, not victory, but weariness, the kind that comes from fighting a quiet war for too many years. The driver opened the door. We are here, Mr. Hale. Marcus stepped out, straightening his jacket, his expression composed again. The lobby guards nodded respectfully, their gazes heavy with recognition. They had seen the headlines too. He entered the elevator, pressing the top floor button, and the mirrored doors closed, sealing him inside a capsule of silence. When the doors opened, Rachel was waiting in the executive suite, tablet in hand. We have statements from every major network, she said. And one more thing, Mia Lang called the corporate line. She said the passengers are organizing to send a letter to the board, asking that she be promoted for speaking up. Marcus's eyebrows lifted slightly. Then make sure she is, and double her salary. Courage should not cost someone their livelihood. Rachel smiled, typing quickly. Done. Marcus walked to the window overlooking the city, his reflection framed by the skyline. You know, he said quietly, when I was their age, I thought money would change the way people saw me. Turns out it only magnified their reflection of themselves. Rachel nodded. And you changed what they see now. He turned, meeting her eyes. Not yet, but I have their attention. Tomorrow, we turn it into accountability. His phone vibrated again. A message from Horizon's board flashed on the screen. Urgent request for meeting confirmation. He silenced it and placed the phone face down. They can wait, he said. The system ran on my name for years. Tonight, it can run on silence. He looked out at the skyline once more, the city lights reflecting like stars on water, and for the first time all day, Marcus allowed himself a slow, steady breath. The world outside had shifted, and so had he. The next morning arrived with a kind of stillness that usually precedes storms. The skyline was gray, rain streaking across Marcus's office windows as the city began to wake. He stood near the glass, a cup of black coffee in hand, watching traffic crawl below like an organism made of impatience. Behind him, Rachel entered quietly, her voice soft but precise. Marcus, the Horizon board is already in session. They are requesting you join via video in 10 minutes. He nodded without turning around. They are not requesting. They are hoping. Rachel hesitated. You are right. They are desperate. He finally turned, the fatigue of the previous day replaced by focus. Has the report been finalized? She handed him a sleek folder. Yes. Every employee complaint from the last 5 years cross-referenced with HR dismissals and unresolved bias claims. The numbers are worse than anyone thought. Marcus flipped through the pages slowly, the sound of paper breaking the silence. Good. Let them see what accountability looks like when it is quantified. His phone buzzed again, a text from Denise Walker, the chief operating officer. The board is nervous. Be gentle. Marcus smirked slightly. Gentle was yesterday. When the meeting began, the conference room on the screen flickered to life. 12 faces appeared, arranged in tidy corporate symmetry: executives, shareholders, and the CEO himself, Robert Kinsey. The man looked exhausted, his voice forced into calm. Marcus, he began, before we proceed, allow me to apologize again for what occurred. It was unacceptable and not reflective of our company's values. Marcus leaned back in his chair, his tone even but cutting. Your company's values are written in brochures, Mr. Kinsey. What happened on that plane was your culture in action. No one spoke. The silence was sharp, like a wire pulled tight. Denise Walker shifted uncomfortably but stayed silent. Marcus continued. For years, you ignored internal warnings. You built diversity statements instead of systems. And now you are paying for both neglect and the illusion of progress. Robert cleared his throat. Marcus, we are committed to fixing this. We have already initiated your proposed Hale protocol. Marcus looked directly into the camera. The Hale protocol was not a suggestion. It was a test. And your next move determines whether it becomes reform or reputation management. One of the shareholders leaned forward, frustration creeping into his voice. With respect, Mr. Hale, freezing $120 million has destabilized multiple departments. We cannot operate under this kind of pressure. Marcus's reply was immediate. That pressure is the point. If bias can survive comfort, then let discomfort fund its removal. Rachel, watching from the corner, hid a small smile behind her tablet. The board members exchanged glances, uncertain whether they were being scolded or educated. Denise finally spoke, her voice level. "Marcus, what exactly do you propose?" He looked down at the file, then back up. "Every department head involved in HR dismissals over bias will be suspended pending investigation. Training will no longer be performative. Compliance will report directly to me for 90 days. The CEO frowned. "That is unprecedented." Marcus's eyes hardened. So was what happened in Seat 2A. The silence that followed felt like a verdict. Robert Kinsey finally nodded. "Approved." Marcus closed the folder. "Good. Now maybe your next flight will actually take off on time ethically." He ended the call before anyone could reply. The screen went black, leaving only his reflection staring back at him. Rachel exhaled, her voice a whisper. "That was not gentle." Marcus looked at her with a faint smile. Gentle never built change. He turned back toward the window, the rain now easing, sunlight breaking faintly through the clouds like permission. By the end of that week, the story that had started 30,000 feet above the ground had reshaped an entire company. News anchors called it the Horizon Reckoning. Opinion writers dissected every word Marcus had said. Some praised his restraint, others questioned his power. But Marcus did not care for either. He was not looking for approval. He was building a standard. In the days that followed, Horizon's internal systems transformed faster than anyone expected. Bias complaints once buried under bureaucracy now surfaced to the top of the agenda. Employees who had been ignored for years were suddenly being heard. And at the center of it all was a single policy file stamped in bold letters: the Hale Protocol. Rachel stood beside Marcus in the boardroom as auditors displayed charts and data on the wall. 57 reports reopened, 19 executives under review. Employee morale up 22%, she read aloud. Marcus nodded. "Good. That means truth is making people uncomfortable." He glanced at the screen displaying Horizon's logo. "But discomfort without accountability is just theater. Make sure every apology comes with a correction." Rachel smiled faintly. Already underway. A knock came at the door. Mia Lang entered, now dressed in a crisp new uniform with a silver badge on her lapel. "Director of Passenger Relations," it read. She looked nervous but proud. "Mr. Hale," she said, "I wanted to thank you. They said you approved my promotion personally." Marcus smiled warmly. "No, Mia. You earned it publicly." She laughed softly, her eyes glassy. "The passengers from that flight wrote letters. They said it changed how they saw things." Marcus's tone softened. "That is the point. Awareness is contagious if we stop silencing it." She nodded, then hesitated. "Nicole reached out. She is taking corporate ethics training. She asked me to tell you she is trying to start over." Marcus looked thoughtful for a moment. "Then she is doing more than most people ever will. Tell her I wish her clarity." Mia nodded, thanked him again, and left quietly. Rachel watched him. "You still think about the ones who got it wrong." Marcus turned toward the window, where the city lights shimmered like constellations. "Because they are the reason the work never ends." He paused, his reflection merging with the skyline. Every time someone chooses to look away, they create another seat for injustice. "My job is to remove those seats, one at a time." Rachel smiled softly. "And you did it without raising your voice once." Marcus chuckled quietly. "Power does not shout, it reveals itself." He walked back to his desk where the framed boarding pass from that flight now sat behind glass, seat 2 amperes. Beneath it, a small engraved plaque read, "Dignity is not an upgrade. It is a right." As the clock neared midnight, the city below pulsed with life, unaware that change had taken root inside its tallest towers. Marcus picked up his phone and dictated a short message for Horizon's next public statement. His voice was calm, clear, deliberate. To every passenger, every employee, and every leader. Equality is not achieved by policy but by practice. It begins where assumptions end. He ended the recording, set the phone down, and looked once more at the skyline that had been both battlefield and reward. The rain had stopped completely. The reflection of light on the glass looked almost like sunrise. And for the first time in years, Marcus Hale allowed himself a rare, quiet smile. Not of victory, but of peace earned. Because this was never about revenge. It was about restoration, the kind that starts in one seat and ends up changing every flight path beneath the same sky.